When we see such a big increase in violent retail, gang membership, ram raids, we have a major challenge around crime in this country.
Another week, another ram raid.
Crime and justice has always been an election hot topic.
Extra police on the beat will be good for New Zealand.
Ram raids, shootings, stabbings, robberies.
It's become an issue that politicians simply cannot ignore. If we have a look at the types of policies that have been presented to voters this election, they fall into three broad approaches. The first is punitive, with a focus on individual responsibility, the sense that these are disruptive individuals and they need to be targeted individually for their crimes. The second approach is more environmental, and that's looking at making changes to systems that are already in place, improving on systems that are already there, and equipping communities to work with what they've got, basically. And the third one is a full system change. So it's an approach that says, look, the current model is not fit for purpose. We need total system transformation if we want to improve anything fundamentally for these young people. National and ACT largely have similar policies. The main one that National is pushing this election is the idea of boot camps or young offender military academies, and saying that there are preventative measures that these parties do have in place as well. For example, ACT wants to really take a good look at oranga tamariki and how that is working for young children. A lot of these children have come through the oranga tamariki care and protection service and then go on into the youth justice facilities. So there's a strong correlation, and ACT does want to look at how these facilities at an oranga tamariki level can be improved to better outcomes for these young people. Labor's policies are a bit of a mixed bag. There are elements of the punitive individual responsibility model, but there are also some educational and environmental factors that they're bringing into play as well. So they want to increase funding and expand circuit breaker and intervention services for young people. In the same breath, they also want to build 2 new youth justice facilities. Labor also wants to introduce a new charge for ram raiding specifically, and it would mean that 12 and 13-year-olds could go before the youth court on that ram raid charge. And going before the youth court gives the court access to other measures that they don't have at the moment, for example, electronic monitoring, so ankle bracelets on 12 and 13-year-olds. The Green Party is looking at expanding specialist courts for rangatahi and Pacifica youth, so specific approaches for their specific circumstances, a more nuanced way of going through the criminal justice system. Likewise, Te Pāti Māori is in big favour of devolving the justice system to Māori, so a by Māori, for Māori approach, looking at what works within their own communities to provide the best outcomes. That's including rehabilitation, yes, also accountability, but making sure that the fundamental issues of why this young person is offending are addressed. So National and ACT have a lot of similar policies when it comes to tackling gangs. They want to do things like ban gang patches, ban gatherings, ban sort of gangs being able to consort in certain areas. ACT wants to bring in gang control orders, meaning that if a gang member is under a gang control order, the police can direct them to do certain things, whether that's stay away from a certain area or actually go to a certain area like rehab, for instance. New Zealand First wants to be able to designate gangs as a terrorist entity. This would mean you wouldn't be able to associate financially with a gang, give them money, for instance. It would probably require a law change. New Zealand First also wants to create a gang-only prison. Labor wants to give police officers more powers to target gang leaders and convoys, and they also want to put more police on the beat. They want to add 300 more police officers under their policy. National and ACT want to crack down on sentencing rules. They want to make sure that judges aren't reducing sentences by too much because they think that people convicted of crimes are getting off too lightly when they come before the courts. National and ACT are also in favour of scrapping cultural reports, which can play a part in a prisoner's sentence. Mitigating factors identified in the cultural report can mean that they do get a reduced sentence. Labor hasn't got a heck of a lot of policy in this specific area of the justice sector. It has dedicated most of its preventative and systemic action towards the youth justice space, things like circuit breakers, which are proving effective. This is where the bulk of the Green and Te Pāti Māori's policies lie, is in the systemic changes that they want to see. The Green Party wants rehabilitation services available for all prisoners. Currently, they are not available to people on remand. For the Māori Party, they want huge change. They want a Māori Justice Authority that is run separately to the current justice system. They want it run by Māori, for Māori, saying that if there's any hope of achieving the outcomes and the strategies and the number of reports that have been done that have tried to improve the justice system for Māori, then this is the only way it can be done. Both parties also want more investment into mental health services and funding drug and addiction services. Now, the experts I spoke to say the evidence for this does not stack up at all. They might work if the young person we're talking about comes from a privileged background and they've got support services at home that they can go back into, but for a lot of these children that we're talking about, they have had it tough their whole lives. They do not need tough love. That's what the experts have said about the boot camp policy. There are mixed reviews on how effective youth justice facilities are in improving outcomes for young people. It all comes down to staffing, according to one of the experts I spoke to. They need to be clinical psychologists, they need to be trained. At the moment, the types of staff that are working in these facilities just simply haven't had enough training, and they're dealing with the most hard-end kids, and they really need to be on top of their game. And for the most parts, that's actually not what's happening. The experts I spoke to did not see ankle bracelets as any sort of deterrent or solution to youth offending. In some cases, ankle bracelets simply send a message to these young people that this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be, this is my start of the path that I'm going to continue on, which is really sad when we're setting young people up like that at the age of 12 and 13. The Police Association says there are real challenges around how safe communities are feeling, and while some of the more punitive policies would need to be carefully worked through, there are gaps, and in some cases these policies will help police do their job when we are talking about gangs. Overall, the experts I've spoken to say the punitive approaches, like the ones proposed by National Act, New Zealand First, and in some cases Labour, won't work, but there is a place for them when it comes, for example, to things like victim safety. Approaches that the Greens and Te Pāti Māori have are more systemic and focus on those fundamental issues that need change, which experts say are the way forward, but they will take a very long time to bed in, and that doesn't bode well for an election cycle. For more analysis on crime and justice policies this election, head over to newsroom.co.nz. We're running series on defining issues that are making up this election. Law and order is a huge one. There's far more information online. Go check it out.